For nearly 3,000 years, it has reigned as perhaps the greatest story ever told, a tale so timeless that even now it feels like it's speaking directly to us, reminding us that every generation, no matter how advanced or distracted, is still searching for the same thing: peace. The Odyssey isn't just about one man's journey home. It's about all of us, our battles with pride, our longing for purpose, and our struggle to find stillness in a world that never stops moving. Think about it. How many times have you fought a storm that no one else could see? How often have you felt close to your Ithaca, only to be pulled back by the waves of doubt, desire, or distraction? The Stoics would say this is the real journey, the one that takes place inside the mind. They believed, as Epictetus once wrote, that it's not the things that disturb us, but our judgments about them. The Odyssey in many ways is the same lesson told through poetry, that our greatest battles are not with monsters, but with ourselves. And maybe that's why it still matters today, because the storms haven't stopped. They've just changed form. The sirens of our time don't sing from the rocks. They sing from our screens, our egos, our endless pursuit of more. But like Odysseus, we can learn to tie ourselves to the mast, to stay true to what matters, to listen without being led astray. That's the art of Stoicism, facing the chaos of life and remaining calm within it. If these conversations speak to something real in you, something grounded in truth, philosophy, and inner growth, consider subscribing. It's a small gesture, but it helps us reach more minds like yours, and it quietly signals that you're walking this path with intention. They say no one crosses the same river twice, and maybe that's because the person who steps into the river the second time is no longer the same. Change doesn't always come from choice. Often it comes from struggle, from the silent battles that force us to question who we are and what we truly value. Odysseus leaves Troy as a hero, but the journey home strips him of everything he thinks he knows about power, pride, and himself. That's the paradox of every great journey. The world may celebrate our victories, but it's the storms afterward that reveal what we're really made of. When Odysseus meets the goddess Athena, she doesn't appear in a blaze of divine power or thunder. She appears as a mentor, a quiet guide disguised as a friend. There's something profound in that. The help we need rarely arrives as a miracle. It comes as guidance, as a lesson, as a voice that tells us the truth we're not ready to hear. The Stoics understood this deeply. No one becomes wise alone. Seneca once wrote, "While we teach, we learn." Wisdom isn't a possession, it's a relationship, a constant exchange between experience and understanding. We are all shaped by our mentors, whether we realize it or not. Zeno had Crates, Marcus Aurelius had Rusticus. These men didn't reach clarity by hiding from the world. They learned by being challenged, corrected, and humbled. Our mentors may not wear the face of gods, but they appear in many forms: a parent's quiet resilience, a teacher's harsh truth, a book that arrives in our life exactly when we need it. Even pain itself can be a mentor, whispering through our mistakes. "Learn from me so you don't have to suffer like this again." Carl Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." Perhaps that's what Odysseus was really learning on his voyage home, not how to survive the sea, but how to navigate himself. Every encounter with hardship becomes a lesson, every setback a teacher. The Stoics believed this too. They saw struggle not as punishment, but as the curriculum of life. Each trial is a lesson in disguise, teaching us patience, discipline, and endurance. When you look closely, the Odyssey isn't a story about adventure. It's a story about education, of the soul, not the intellect. Odysseus doesn't return home with treasures. He returns with understanding. He's learned that wisdom doesn't grow in the comfort of certainty, but in the discomfort of humility. The same is true for us. Every failure, every loss, every painful truth we're forced to face. That's how we grow wiser. So maybe the first Stoic lesson of the Odyssey is this: wisdom isn't born from isolation, but from humility, the willingness to be taught, the humility to listen, the humility to admit we don't have it all figured out. Because it's in that moment of openness that true transformation begins. Like Odysseus, we are all travelers, guided not by the promise of an easy path, but by the quiet strength to keep learning from the sea that never stops moving. And yet, even those guided by wisdom stumble when pride takes the wheel. Odysseus had outsmarted the Cyclops, escaped death, and proven his brilliance. But as he sails away, he can't resist. He shouts his name into the wind, needing the world to know it was him. That single act, born not of courage but of ego, cost him 10 more years of wandering, 10 more years of storms, loss, and longing. It wasn't fate that punished him, it was himself. Ego has a quiet way of undoing us. It whispers that our value depends on being seen, being praised, being right. Seneca called it the disease of needing applause. And Marcus Aurelius warned that the hunger for recognition is slavery to other people's minds. Think about that. How often do we win the battle but lose the war because we can't stop proving ourselves? We get the last word in an argument but lose our peace. We chase validation only to end up exhausted. Pride promises strength, but it secretly drains it. It blinds us to what truly matters. Carl Jung once wrote, "Through pride, we are ever deceiving ourselves." But deep down below the surface of the average conscience, a still small voice says to us, something is out of tune. Maybe that's what happened to Odysseus. His voice carried across the sea, but the silence that followed revealed something hollow. Maybe the storm that follows him isn't divine punishment. It's a reflection, the echo of a mind out of harmony with itself. Because pride doesn't just delay peace, it destroys it. It replaces wisdom with noise, clarity with chaos. And yet, even the proudest hearts can be softened by reflection. After years of turmoil, Odysseus sails into calm waters and meets the Lotus Eaters, people who live in endless comfort, untouched by pain or urgency. They've tasted something sweet, and it's made them forget who they are. There's no war, no struggle, no purpose, just pleasure, just drifting. And that's when Odysseus realizes comfort can be just as dangerous as chaos. The Stoics warned about this long ago. They saw comfort as the slowest form of decay. Seneca said, "No tree becomes rooted and sturdy unless many a wind assails it." Ease may feel safe, but it quietly erodes direction. It takes away the sharpness of our mind, the discipline of our spirit. Comfort seduces us with peace, but it's an imitation, a soft illusion that keeps us from growing. True peace isn't found in the absence of struggle. It's found in the mastery of it. The Stoics believed that calm isn't what you reach after the storm. It's how you choose to sail through it. Life will test you, not because the universe is cruel, but because the soul needs friction to remember its strength. Growth happens in the resistance, not the release. So if you ever find yourself lost in comfort, remember, you're not resting, you're drifting. And drifting is the quietest form of surrender. The winds of challenge are not your enemy. They're the reminder that you're still moving, still alive, still becoming who you're meant to be. But how do we resist that drift, especially when the world is filled with sirens? The truth is, they're not as obvious as we think. They don't sing songs of destruction. They sing what you most want to hear. Words that sound like comfort but hide decay. Promises that feel like rest but lead to ruin. That's what makes them dangerous. Because the sirens of our age don't live on rocky shores. They live in our pockets, in our thoughts, in every little escape we choose instead of growth. The Stoics would have called this the voice of temptation, the internal whisper that personalizes your downfall. It's like an algorithm of the soul, one that knows exactly where you're weak. It tells you, you've earned this distraction. You deserve this indulgence. Just one more time. And before you realize it, you're no longer steering the ship. You're being pulled toward the rocks, slowly, softly, willingly. You're not destroyed by a monster, but by your own desires. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That's the hidden trap, the illusion that the things pulling you off course are outside of you, but they're not. They're inside, disguised as comfort, as pleasure, as just taking a break. The Stoics saw this clearly. They believed our greatest challenge wasn't the world itself, but our reaction to it. We can't always control the noise, but we can control whether we listen. That's what Odysseus understood. When he approached the island of the Sirens, he didn't trust his willpower. He didn't pretend he was stronger than the song. Instead, he tied himself to the mast and ordered his men to plug their ears. That wasn't weakness. That was wisdom. It was the humility to accept that temptation, when heard, is hard to resist. So he designed his life to protect himself from himself. That's discipline, not fighting the urge in the moment, but structuring your world so you don't have to fight it at all. The Stoics had a word for this, prohairesis. It means governing your mind before the storm arrives. Building the kind of self-control that doesn't depend on moods or motivation, but on foresight. It's choosing to step away from what weakens you before it calls your name. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. That's the heart of it. True strength isn't about overpowering your desires. It's about outsmarting them. It's about setting boundaries, not because you fear temptation, but because you respect yourself enough to protect your peace. Maybe that's why true freedom looks a lot like restraint. It's not about denying joy or cutting yourself off from life. It's about reclaiming control over what shapes you. Freedom, to the Stoics, wasn't doing whatever you want. It was being free from what controls you. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is tie yourself to the mast, so that when the sirens sing, you can finally hear them for what they are. Illusions trying to pull you away from your true course. Still, even the disciplined find themselves surrounded by chaos. No matter how prepared we are, no matter how strong our resolve seems, life has a way of cornering us, forcing us to choose between two kinds of pain. Between Scylla and Charybdis, Odysseus had to make an impossible decision. On one side, a monster that devoured anything within reach. On the other, a whirlpool that swallowed entire ships. There was no perfect path, only the one that cost less. That's the quiet truth the Stoics understood. Not every choice is clean. Sometimes, no matter what we do, we lose something. Stoicism doesn't promise a life without pain. It promises a way to face it without losing ourselves. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." What he meant wasn't that we can control outcomes, but that we can control our response to them. We can choose how we face the inevitable storms. Odysseus knew he couldn't save everyone. He had to decide which loss he could live with. That's a lesson most of us resist learning. We want to believe that if we plan carefully enough, work hard enough, or love deeply enough, we can avoid sacrifice. But life always asks for something in return. Carl Jung once said, "No tree can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell." Growth demands descent. Wisdom demands loss. Every meaningful journey tests our ability to endure what we can't control without becoming bitter, without letting pain define who we are. Courage, Marcus wrote, isn't the absence of fear. It's the ability to act despite it. That's what separates the Stoic from the spectator. Courage isn't loud. It's not about grand gestures or fearless faces. It's quiet. It's the steady hand on the wheel when the sea roars and the sky turns dark. It's knowing that fear is a natural part of the human condition and still saying, I will go on. And sometimes, courage means accepting that some pain is necessary. There are moments when peace isn't found in avoidance, but in endurance. We can't sail through life untouched. The waves will come, and they will leave their mark. But we can steer with integrity, with the kind of inner compass that no storm can break. The Stoics called this arete, moral excellence, the unwavering choice to do what's right even when it hurts. Maybe that's what makes the difference between drowning and arriving. Not the absence of hardship, but the presence of character. Not a life free of storms, but a soul strong enough to face them. Odysseus reached Ithaca not because the sea was kind, but because he refused to let chaos steer him off course. And in the same way, our own journey home, toward peace, toward meaning, depends not on what we lose along the way, but on how we hold ourselves as we pass through the storm. Every storm leaves debris behind. For Odysseus, it was his ship. For us, it's the illusions we thought would save us, the false beliefs about control, permanence, and certainty. When the waves finally settle, what's left isn't always what we hoped for. But maybe that's the gift of the storm. It strips away everything that isn't real. Odysseus loses his men, his wealth, his reputation. Everything that once defined him is gone, and yet he endures. He's not carried forward by luck or divine favor, but by will. The Stoics called this the ruling principle, the inner strength that cannot be taken, only surrendered. Epictetus, who knew what it meant to lose everything, once said, "You may fetter my leg, but not my will." That's the essence of perseverance, not in the body, but in the soul. There's a difference between persistence and perseverance. Persistence is effort, it's doing. Perseverance is deeper. It's faith. Not faith in outcomes, but faith in meaning. Faith that even the storm is part of the journey, that every trial has its place in the architecture of growth. Carl Jung once wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." And that's what Odysseus learns, what we all learn eventually, that the journey isn't about avoiding suffering. It's about being transformed by it. The Stoics believed that life doesn't test us to see if we'll break. It tests us to reveal what we're made of, to show us, as Marcus Aurelius wrote, that fire feeds on obstacles. What looks like destruction often becomes fuel. What feels like loss becomes clarity. The storm doesn't steal who we are, it exposes it. And then comes Ithaca, the island that fueled every hardship, every decision, every ounce of endurance. But when Odysseus finally returns, it's not the paradise he imagined. There is no peace waiting for him, no celebration. What he finds is blood. Suitors who've taken his home, dishonor that demands vengeance. It's a brutal ending, one that feels almost unstoic, even tragic. Because after all he's endured, the greatest battle is not against the world, it's within himself. Maybe that's the point, that no matter how far we travel or how much we conquer, the hardest war is the one inside, the one between anger and restraint, pride and wisdom. Marcus Aurelius faced his own version of Ithaca, betrayal, civil war, the chance to punish those who rose against him. And yet, when victory was his, he chose mercy. He wept over his enemy's death. He pardoned the traitors. He wrote to the Senate, "Do not stain my reign in their blood." He understood something that Odysseus did not, that victory without virtue is defeat in disguise, that the real triumph is not in domination, but in discipline. Because forgiveness, True forgiveness is harder than war. It demands mastery over the self, not others. And that's the final lesson of the Odyssey through Stoic eyes, that strength isn't proven by how many battles you win, but by whether you can lay down your sword when the fighting is done. Peace, it turns out, isn't found at the end of the journey. It's found when you stop letting the storm inside you steer the ship. And still, Odysseus cannot rest. After years of storms and loss, he wins. He returns home. He's reclaimed his throne, his land, his family. Everything he thought he wanted is finally his. But something inside him won't be still. He leaves again, not because he must, but because he can't help it. The same fire that carried him through every trial now refuses to let him stop. And so, the journey begins again, not across the sea this time, but into the quiet wilderness of his own mind. Seneca warned of this sickness, the endless wandering of the restless soul. He said, "Those who rush from place to place have many acquaintances, but no friends." And maybe that's what restlessness really is. A refusal to sit still long enough to meet yourself. We tell ourselves we're chasing purpose, adventure, meaning. But often, what we're running from is silence. Because silence has a way of confronting us with truths we've avoided for too long. It's not geography we're escaping, it's ourselves. We move cities, change careers, end relationships, start new ones, all in the hope that peace lies somewhere else. But every time we arrive, it slips through our fingers. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." And that's the tragedy of Odysseus. He's conquered kingdoms, faced gods, survived monsters, but he can't conquer his own restlessness. The same mind that outwitted every danger cannot quiet itself in peace. We all carry that same tendency, the need to move, to fix, to achieve. It feels like progress, but sometimes it's just avoidance in disguise. The Stoics saw this clearly. They taught that peace isn't a destination, it's a discipline. It's not something you find at the end of your journey, but something you cultivate in the middle of it. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Freedom isn't about having endless choices, it's about no longer being controlled by the need for more. We chase new battles because we're afraid of what happens when there's nothing left to fight. The silence after the storm can feel unbearable. But that silence, that stillness, is where transformation begins. The Stoics would tell us that the goal of life isn't constant motion. It's not conquest or recognition. It's harmony between who you are and what you do. It's the moment you realize that the peace you've been seeking has been within you all along, waiting for you to stop running long enough to hear it. Peace isn't something you reach, it's something you realize. It's what happens when the war inside you finally ends. When you stop trying to escape yourself and start learning to sit beside who you are, even with your flaws, your doubts, your scars. Odysseus spent his life sailing toward Ithaca, but maybe the truest homecoming isn't found on any map. Maybe it's found the moment you stop moving and finally arrive within. That's the real Odyssey. Not 10 years across the sea, but a lifetime across the soul. The journey that no one else can see, the one that unfolds quietly within us. It's not about distance or geography, it's about depth. Every temptation, every storm, every detour is another lesson in how to come home to yourself. Because home isn't where you started, it's who you become after everything has tested you, broken you, and rebuilt you in ways you never expected. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, knew this truth well. After a shipwreck destroyed everything he owned, he wandered into a bookstore in Athens and found the teachings that would change his life. What he thought was the end became the beginning. Years later, he would write, "I made a prosperous voyage when I suffered shipwreck." There's something deeply human in that. how the very thing we resist becomes the thing that saves us. Sometimes the gods take everything so you can finally see what was yours all along. Carl Jung once said, "There is no birth of consciousness without pain. It's not until the illusion of control is shattered that we start to see clearly." When life throws you off course, when the winds shift, when the shore disappears, it's easy to curse the storm. But what if the storm isn't punishment? What if it's direction? The Stoics believed that fate isn't something to fight against, but something to work with. The winds that push you away from what you wanted may be guiding you toward what you need. Every struggle has its purpose. Every setback, every heartbreak, every delay. These are the waves that shape the soul. They strip away pride, ego, and fear until all that's left is the essence of who you are. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. The obstacle isn't separate from the path. It is the path." That's what Odysseus learns. That's what Zeno discovered. And it's what we're all called to remember when the world feels against us. Because the storm is the way home, the chaos, the loss, the uncertainty. It's not there to destroy you. It's there to reveal you, to uncover the strength, patience, and wisdom that were buried beneath comfort and certainty. The Stoics would tell us that fate doesn't test you to see if you'll break. It refines you so that you'll know you can't. And one day, when you finally arrive, when the storms have quieted and the sea lies calm, you'll realize something profound. Ithaca was never a place. It was never a destination waiting beyond the horizon. It was you, the person you became along the way. Every trial, every lesson, every scar was a map leading you back to yourself. And when you reach that place of stillness, you'll understand what Odysseus, what Zeno, and what every Stoic before you discovered, that the journey was never about finding peace. It was about becoming it. If this journey spoke to you, if you see your own storms reflected in Odysseus's, remember, the Stoics didn't tell these stories to entertain. They told them to awaken something ancient in us, something strong, something unbreakable, the courage to face ourselves, to stand in the chaos and not flinch. These lessons aren't about gods or myths. They're about you, about the quiet battles you fight every day, and the strength that's waiting for you in every challenge you'd rather avoid. So, take this as your reminder. Tie yourself to your mast. When the world tempts you with comfort, distraction, or doubt, hold steady. When the storms rise, sail through them, because no storm lasts forever, and no sea is endless. Every wave carries a lesson, and every hardship is a step closer to who you were meant to become. And when you finally reach your Ithaca, when the noise fades, when you find yourself in moments of stillness, don't hurry. Don't rush past it as if peace is just another destination to conquer. Breathe. You've already arrived. The journey was never about finding a place. It was about becoming the kind of person who no longer needs to run. As Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." The Odyssey, like Stoicism itself, is a call to awaken, to stop running from yourself and start returning to what's real, what's eternal. Thank you for being part of Stoic Journal, for walking this path of growth, reflection, and self-mastery with us. If this message resonated with you, there's another video waiting on your screen that continues this journey. I think you'll find it meaningful. And until we meet again, stay grounded, stay calm, and keep sailing.